Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us right on Channels Television. The 2023 verdict state elections. I'm Sean Kimbaloye. Welcome to this beat of the coverage, the round-the-clock coverage right on Channels Television. And as you can see, we've been bringing you all the information from across the country. There's some results that have been projected, announced, and returned. Stand by, everyone. Beginning with what we know as of now, the result from Oyo State, the governors that are returning out of about 10 states that are governors there are seeking re-election. We now know for sure what we have. Beginning with Oyo State, where Makinde of the PDP has now been returned and elected for a second term in office, winning the election by 563,756 votes to defeat his closest rival, Senator Teslim Folarin of the APC, with well over 200,000 vote margin. Teslim Folarin garnered 256,685. If you flip the page and go to a nearby Oyo State, where the incumbent of the APC this time, Dapo Abiodun, has emerged a winner and returned elected. Dapo Abiodun declared to have defeated his closest rival of the PDP, Oladipo Adebutu. And of course, what we saw in Akwa Ibom, where Umar Eno of the PDP has also been declared winner of the election. Umar Eno garnered 356,346 votes to defeat his closest rival, that is Basi Albert of the YPP, with 136,262 votes. In the north central region of the country, in Kwara State, the APC candidate and incumbent governor returning and gathered 273,000 votes, 424, to defeat Yahman Abdullahi of the PDP, who garnered 155,490 votes. There you have it, the projections and the declarations that have been made. Welcome on board, everyone. Of course, you can see right beside me, Channels Television data analyst Babajide Ogunsawo. It's good to have you.
Sean, the pleasure is all mine. Remember, we did this 4 years ago, looking at all the trends, the results, and the implications. It's going to be interesting to see that 28 states, out of these 28 states, 17 states elections, the governors will be first-time governors, new governors, 17 new governors, and they will be looking at those 11 states whereby the governors are seeking re-election. Out of these 11 states, 8 states are in northern Nigeria, 3 states are in southern Nigeria. Out of the 3 states in southern Nigeria, Lagos, Ogun, Oyo, we've seen the results from Oyo, and we've seen the results from Ogun. Now we can clearly look at what happened in Oyo. Interesting.
Sorry, just a moment. Let me, we have other people joining us, because if you leave Jide and I here, we might be matching and crunching data as much as you wanted. But let me bring on board and let me introduce to you Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Kayode Adeluola. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure being here.
Thank you so much. As well as Kunle Lawa, who is the Executive Director of Electoral College in Nigeria. Thank you so much, Kunle, for joining us. Professor Sulaiman Kura is an IRAD analyst and is joining us virtually from Sokoto. Thank you so much, Prof, and thanks for the patience. We've been going around town to find out what the results are, and that's why we are not able to bring you earlier than scheduled. But thank you so much indeed for staying with us. Austin Aigbe is also with us virtually. He's an election analyst and he's joined us in Abuja virtually, though. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming. It's going to be a long ride, but stick around with us because you will enjoy the ride, I promise you, because Nigerians are interested in one thing. These results are very important. They've been waiting for it. Yes. They went to the polls. They went to go and cast their ballot. Yes. For those who could not cast their ballot, they were watching from their homes and looking at what is going to happen, the trend, the patterns, and everything is playing out right before us and what we're going to be doing. Jide, the IRAD board is also going to be giving us some projections, perhaps, how this map is shaping up. You know, the map has never been this colorful. We've seen mostly 2 colors on the map, but we'll be getting to it just in a moment. The states that you're talking about. But let's begin, everyone, with Oyo State. Give us back the result of today. Let's ponder on it for a moment before we go back not too far in time on what really happened. As we told you earlier, that the result has been declared and is known for now that in Oyo State, Makinde of the PDP has now carried the day with well over 500,000 votes, 563,756 votes to defeat Teslim Folarin, 256,684. Beyond what we can see, what are these figures telling you?
So there are lots of information coming from these figures. We can look at it from what happened since 2015 in Oyo State when Governor Ajimobi was won that election under the APC. And if you take a look at those close results in Oyo State, for instance, that's it. So in 2015, we see those results. Yeah. It was the APC that was victorious, 327,000 votes in Oyo then. PDP managed only 79,000 votes. Now look at what happened in 2019. 2019, big numbers from Oyo, 33 local governments, PDP 515,000 votes. Seyi Makinde had mobilized more people. Again, remember in 2015, it was only less than 400,000 votes. 4 years after, Seyi Makinde, 515,000 votes.
So Seyi Makinde has been consistent with the 500,000 votes.
He's been consistent with 500,000 votes. But what makes this election even more special and even dangerous for him was going into this election, the presidential election that happened when 3 weeks ago, it was the APC candidate that won in Oyo State. Not only did the APC candidate win in Oyo State during the presidential election, the National Assembly elections across the 3 senatorial districts, Oyo North, Oyo Central, Oyo South. Those 3 senatorial districts were won by APC candidates. APC candidates were in the 9th Assembly for Oyo State, APC candidates as well, this 10th Assembly, Oyo North, APC, Oyo Central, APC, Oyo South, APC. What happened when this election happened 3 weeks ago? National Assembly House of Representative members, 14 House of Rep seats in Oyo State. 8 of those seats as well went to APC. So going into this governorship election, Seyi Makinde had a step behind, his foot behind, because the 3 senatorial districts had gone to the opposition, APC. Most of the House of Representative seats, out of the 14, more than half of them had gone to the APC. But how did he win this election? Based on the results we have from INEC. Seyi Makinde, if we bring up those 2023 numbers, Seyi Makinde won all 33 local governments in Oyo State, except 2, Irepo and Orelope. Those local governments are in Oyo North, but they do not have the numbers. In Oyo, the numbers are in Oyo Central. Seyi Makinde won all the local governments in Oyo Central.
The Ogbomoshos, there are 3 definite local governments coming from that particular city, the old city of Ogbomosho, is always very definitive. If you win Ogbomosho, you'll be looking into the areas like Ibadan. You look into the areas like Shaki and Olorunsogo. These are also where some big figures are coming out from, historically.
Big figures, but Seyi Makinde did magic. In 2019, when this election happened, he won the PDP by a margin of only 150,000 votes, just a little over 150,000 votes. Based on this result, he has doubled his margin of lead. He doubled his margin of lead in an era where he had no senators, in an era where majority of the House of Representative members had gone to the opposition, in an era where he had to win Oyo Central to get re-elected. So it's interesting how Seyi Makinde, a lot of people call him the mobilizer, and from the numbers we see from Oyo in 2023, we see that Seyi Makinde still mobilized the people. His margin of lead over the APC, we see those numbers. This was in the presidential election. We see that
someone is just playing around with us.
So we see those numbers. Shane, look at that. PDP governorship election as released by INEC, 563,000. Look at that margin between the PDP, its party, and the APC. More than 300,000 votes. In 2019, Seyi Makinde didn't win with such margins. The margins in 2019 were approximately half of that. Again, how did he do that? How has he done it this time around? He has won all 33 local governments in Oyo State, excluding 2 local governments, Irepo and Orelope. So it's interesting to look at these changes. What we've seen clearly from this result and what it means is that in the presidential election, even though Bola Tinubu won in Oyo State in the presidential election with a margin shown of more than 250,000 votes. So a lot of supporters of Seyi Makinde and the PDP were worried. The presidential election had happened. Bola Tinubu had won the presidential election in Oyo State, and not only did Bola Tinubu win, Bola Tinubu won with a margin in excess of 250,000 votes. Seyi Makinde went into this election. He had lost all his senators. He had lost most of his House of Reps members. However, Seyi Makinde not only won, he won by a margin larger than he won in 2019. Show the people of Oyo State are in love with Seyi Makinde.
I mean, not what you say is what we see in terms of the vote. Their love for him, either arguably or not, is what they have shown in the number of votes that have given him. If he's not loved, how come he's been able to maintain over 500,000 votes? He's shown something that you and I may not be able to tell Nigerians at the moment, but scientifically speaking, because election is also science, they've shown that they are in love with him, and he has shown that. There's a lot of politics, let me bring you here, that played out in Oyo State. Don't forget, there was a G5, the governors of the PDP, Abia, Enugu, Rivers, and Oyo State, and of course, Benue. The 5 of them, they were the governors who were aggrieved and openly said that they will not work for the presidential candidate of the PDP. But Seyi Makinde has shown that he delivered politically. That is the attribution. He delivered for the APC, but now he's delivered for himself. How did you see that coming, Kole?
Well, for me, it's a big surprise. But, you know, looking at Oyo State, I must say clearly, Seyi Makinde, Governor Seyi Makinde, is someone to watch with politics. He must have been one of the G5. It seems he must have taken a stand and exchanged that stand for his own support, which is actually the game of politics. Let's also understand that Oyo has also shown that it understands what governance is, because it has selected people from the APC for its National Assembly and still standing behind a governor who is PDP. So you must commend the people of Oyo State too for understanding what governance is.
It's not only in Oyo, the sophistication that we are seeing, I mean, with all these G5 governors, for example, in Rivers State, went to the APC, a state that in some week has held sway for 2 terms, and now is coming back, and with the alliance that the undertone that we're saying that is playing out, SN, give us an understanding of the G5 factor, the result that we're seeing, what played out in the presidential election, and what we're seeing playing out.
Well, I congratulate Seyi Makinde, the governor-elect again, because clearly he took a stand, and it could have played either way, to be amongst the G5. There he was, a PDP candidate, saying, vote for Bola Ahmed Tinubu. That was more or less what the G5 stood for. Because at the end of the day, we knew who they wanted their own supporters to vote for. And then he came back home and said, now it's my turn as governor. I want you to vote for me. And they listened to him. That shows he had control. He showed he had charisma. It showed that in Oyo State, Seyi Makinde is someone to respect. I don't know what he has done to them, but I'm sure they love him, just like you said. And clearly, if there would be another election again and he says, this is the direction you should go, there's a chance that they will follow him. That's my view.
You wanted to say something?
So Sean, what clearly this election in Oyo State means, the governorship election means, is that when the presidential election happened in Oyo State and Bola Ahmed Tinubu won, it meant that the people were not voting against Seyi Makinde. They were voting for Bola Tinubu. So that's really what it shows, that the presidential election happened, the APC won, but the APC won because the people, it was a vote for Bola Tinubu, not a vote against Seyi Makinde. In this election, Sean, like I mentioned, all 33 local governments, all local governments in Oyo Central, all local governments in Oyo South, all local governments in Oyo North, excluding 2, went to Seyi. And Orelope. And not only did Seyi Makinde still maintain the 500,000 votes he got in 2019, his numbers got better. So if you look at what happened, his numbers in 2019, and you look at Oyo State in 2019, he was on the 500,000 mark in 2019. We see those numbers, 515,621 in 2019. If you look at the 2023 results, the numbers were a bit better than 515,000. So we see 563,000. So we see 50,000 additional people voted for Seyi Makinde. Again, the big number. This election, presidential election, Bola Tinubu won with a margin of 266,000 votes.
And there is a popular saying that you can't do the same thing and expect
different
result. But Seyi Makinde has shown that the science of doing the same thing consistently and getting even a more result as shown here tonight. But let me bring Professor Kura to the conversation. Professor Kura, give us an understanding, the science of what we're seeing playing out. What we saw in Oyo State about 3 weeks ago, and what we're seeing today, for example, what do you make of it? Is it a sophistication, the political sophistication of the voters? It seems there are 500,000, 500,000 people in Oyo State that Seyi Makinde has convinced his Omituntun slogan in the fall. He said Omituntun 1.0, and this time Omituntun 2.0. That's what he calls it, and it looks to me that that Omituntun campaign has worked for him. Omituntun in literally means new water.
What plays out in Oyo is likely to play out in several states across Nigeria. And what it is demonstrating is that Nigerian democracy is gradually maturing. The voters are gradually becoming well educated. They can differentiate between candidates and political parties. So it's only obvious that during the presidential elections in Oyo State, the people voted for Bola Tinubu because they want Bola Tinubu to be at the center. And for him to be at the center, he also needs support. And that is why they elected all the National Assembly, members of the National Assembly to go to Abuja and support him. And at the same time...
Prof, apologies if I may just interrupt you because we're looking at live pictures from the INEC headquarters in Abuja, where we are standing by for a press conference from the INEC headquarters. As soon as we are ready for that, we'll take you live just to let you know that we're expecting words from the INEC head office, and the national officials of INEC will be briefing the nation in just a moment. So stand by, everyone, for that. And as soon as we get clear that that will commence, we will get it to you. So, Prof, apologies, please, you can go ahead.
So my understanding is that this is increasingly demonstrating the sophistication of Nigerian voters, particularly those people in Oyo, that they are able to distinguish between the candidate that they want him to go to the center, and obviously that is Bola Tinubu. As their own, they want him to be at the center, and at the same time, he needs support. And what kind of support? Is majority of the APC to be members of the National Assembly. So it's very interesting to see that the people of Oyo now voted for Bola Tinubu and members of the National Assembly at the 25th February, presidential election. While at the same time, critically understanding the governance capacity of Seyi Makinde, they decided during the gubernatorial elections of yesterday, they decided to massively, vote for him. Out of the 33 local government, he almost won 90% of the local government. This is very impressive. And Oyo State is not only alone in this perspective. You will see lot of instances across Nigeria where people voted for APC during the presidential election, and when it comes to gubernatorial election, they voted actually for a different candidate and a different, political party. Showing.
It does look to me that there was some political casualties because the PDP lost in some National Assembly seat, and so going with Bola Tinubu may have confused some voters. And there were, from what I understand, some people were aggrieved in Oyo State about the choice of going with Bola Tinubu, and at the end of the day, some of them losing their seats. But if you look at what is happening, Prof, River State also went in the way of Bola Tinubu and was, it's not concluded in River State. It will be concluded tomorrow. The announcement of the result is going to be concluded tomorrow. And this is one of the other states that the G5 holds sway.
Yeah, you see the G5, and I think that is where the PDP generally lost it. In democracy, because of the balance of competition, the PDP didn't do a lot of organizational calculation to sacrifice the G5 just because of it is national president. And I think that is the greatest mistake that the PDP has made for sacrificing the G5. Governors in Nigerian election, they are very, very strong. They hold the power to convince their voters, to convince their people. So you can see very clearly the G5, except probably in Benue, where from the report we are getting, that probably the opposition party is likely to take over. You can see very clearly G5 were very clever, very, very clever. They supported, indirectly the candidate of the APC, but at the same time, try to maintain their hold in their various states.
Let me bring in Osina Igbe. Give us a sense of what is happening. We will be going, because the pattern here is different from the other state that we'll be dealing with tonight. Out of the 4 results that has been declared tonight, in totality, there are other states that we'll be bringing to you. So stand by with us. The results are out on the projections that we'll be bringing to you right here on Channels Television. We're understanding that some results are equally ready, but in the moment when they fully declare them by INEC, we'll be getting you to this board behind me to give you a sense of what the patterns and the projections are. Hossein, give me a sense of what you make of the pattern in which the voting has gone in Oyo State.
Thank you, Shehu. I listened to other panelists. To be candid and to be very fair, what has happened in Osun is simply what I categorize as political calculation. Governor Makinde knew what he wanted. He did an absolute deal, vote deal. The APC didn't push in Oyo State based on those agreements. What you see in Oyo is largely an acceptance at the level of that conversation. If you look at each of the 5 governors we are talking about, in Rivers State, the PDP won the national seats, the National Assembly seats, and gave the governor, the presidential vote to the APC. It was an agreement. If you listen to each of the governors and you listen to what they were not saying, you read in between their lines. If you look at or you try to analyze the other governors from the southeast, the 2 of them from the southeast, they refused to make concrete statements because of the tsunami they were faced with from the Labour Party. In Benue, the governor of Benue went anti the resolution of the 5 governors. I'm talking about Wike and Governor Makinde. And he went out and actually supported the Labour Party, that the agreement to support the APC was not a consensus. And he went ahead to support the Labour Party. And he said, even if I lose in this election, it will be in the best interest of the people of Benue. And it is clear what has happened in Oyo, you should expect in Rivers is going to happen. And we're already seeing feelers from the southeast in Enugu and in Abia. It's not going in the direction of the 5 governors. There was a high-level permutation around the presidency coming to the south, which was very critical for the southern governors. And here you are in the southeast, there was a southern president. In the southwest, there was a southern president. You only had one northern president, one other member of the G5, which is Benue, who was alone. So Governor Makinde played the game. It's a game. Politics is a game. And what is politics? It is the authoritative allocation of scarce resources. What Governor Makinde did was to allocate the scarce resources in a manner that is mutually beneficial. What is going to happen to the APC governor candidate in Oyo State is going to get a juicy position from the president-elect as soon as that is done. Teslin is going to get fantastic position. So the push, you may say he had up to 200,000 votes. Yes, he had up to 200,000 votes. But the calculation is what I'm talking about.
All right, because there are those who will also say that if you look at the structure of the APC, there is a Teslim Folarin, there is also Benkelemes, the Adelabu, who is of the Accord Party. They have been from the same political family. After the death of the former governor, the APC in Oyo State has not remained the same. There's been a lot of volatility within that house. They've bickered a lot, and that's why you see Adelabu, for example, who wanted to run, didn't get a ticket. He went to a court party. And so those who believe that if they had harnessed their resources, come together, maybe the result is not, may have been different. But look, it's just about 30,000 votes, different from what Sheyi Makinde gathered. In the last time around, he's maintained a 500,000 comfortable votes from his people. It looks to me that Sheyi Makinde has been able to convince just 30,000 more people to come to his side from 4 years ago.
Yes, Sheyi, you're right. Remember what we've heard. Politics is a game. It's different from life. In life, you are rewarded for your loyalty. That's how we grew up. You get a reward for loyalty. In politics, you can be rewarded for your disloyalty. And that's exactly what has happened in Oyo State. Sheyi Makinde stood his ground. He campaigned indirectly for another candidate, even though he stayed in his party. The other candidate, the APC candidate, won. And we see Sheyi Makinde still winning almost all the local governments apart from 2, scoring results better than even former Governor Ajimobi. Previous election, Sheyi Makinde hit the 500,000 mark. In this election, despite all the political games that have happened, Sheyi Makinde still got more supporters than he did on his first time on the ballot.
What changed? What pattern? What dynamics came into play? I mean, from 4 years ago and now, what did you see that changed?
So nothing significantly has changed. However, what we've seen is in the 9th Assembly, this 9th Assembly that is passing out, if you look at the senatorial districts in Oyo State, Oyo North, Oyo Central, Oyo South, those same senatorial districts were controlled by the APC in the Senate. Oyo South, in Oyo State as well, if you go to the House of Representatives, in the outgoing Senate, 14 House of Representative seats, 10 of them, again, majority of those seats in the House of Representatives in Oyo State dominated by the opposition. So what we've seen is a governor that understands how to maneuver despite the opposition. Going into this election, the 3 senators in Oyo State were from the opposition. Going into this election, the majority of the House of Representative members in Oyo State were from the opposition.